All right. Awesome. So good evening, Healthy Hangout friends. And if it's your first time here, welcome. Um, I'm Mitzi, and I am a certified Optavia coach, and I am excited to share with you some committing to you more than self-care in 2021. But before I do, I want to introduce one of my coaches, Chuck, who is going to introduce one of his client coaches to share her story. So Chuck, unmute yourself. You're already unmuted. Good for you.
Thank you, Mitzi. I want to introduce a dear friend who has an amazing story. She and I have known each other since we were teenagers and marched together in drum corps. And we reconnected recently on Facebook about a year ago. And she has a fantastic story around really getting into the program, running into challenges, refinding the program, and really understanding what it's all about and how to pay that forward. So I'd like to introduce Lisa Donahue. Lisa?
Hey, everybody. Like Chuck said, I'm Lisa, and Chuck and I have kind of known each other forever. So as Chuck said, this is my second go around with the plan. I was on the 5-1 back in 2008, back when it was just kind of called MediFast. And I had a lot of success back then. I lost 70 pounds, but the catch here is when I reached goal, of course, I just thought of it as a diet and I was done. And 12 years later, 70 pounds back on, here I am again. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened back then, stresses in my life that, just put me right back into my bad habits. So 12 years later, I'm back. And this time around, I think it's really different. 2020 started out great. I took the trip of a lifetime. I went to Egypt, had just an amazing time. And then when I got home and I started looking through all the pictures, I just couldn't believe how fat I looked in all the pictures. I hated every picture I looked at. I thought these pictures were going to be something I was going to cherish for my whole lifetime. And all I kept looking at them, I didn't even see the pyramids. I just saw the fat lady in the picture who couldn't have been me. So at that point, it was like I knew I needed to do something again. And of course, Optavia was in my mind because I had done it. I had lost the weight and I knew I could do it again. And at that point, I was still kind of on the fence. Yeah, I know I need to do something. So I kind of put the pictures away and ignored them. And then Corona came along, and that was kind of the reality check, knowing that at this point I'm obese again, borderline diabetic. It really scared me knowing that I had a much higher risk of, getting the virus and having more problems with it than someone who is at a normal weight. So at that point, I said, I just have to get my health back in check. And at the same time that Corona came along, my dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, and he lives with me. So this has been kind of a big challenge. And doing research on how not to get Alzheimer's and dementia, again, one of the key factors is eating and exercise and, living a healthy, active life. And that's when I said, you know what, it is time. And this was just the big catalyst. Everything just kind of came together at once. So I restarted the plan at the end of April. And as of this week, I am down that 70 pounds exactly as of this morning. Woohoo! So I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like I can go even further because I still have a little belly there that I don't want to have. So I've got about 15 pounds left. And this time I feel like, reading The Habits of Health over and over and going through the different elements and using the life book, using Chuck, and really working with the coach, it's made so much of a difference. And having this community, and it makes it so much easier because there's encouragement, people giving you recipes, and you really, I've really started to realize that, you know what, I'm not on a diet. This is a journey that I'm on to just living a healthier life. And eating 6 times a day is, one of the keys, and having the fuelings just makes it easier to get to where I want to be. So that's kind of my here's where I'm at. So at this point, I said to myself, I talked to Chuck a couple of weeks ago and said, I feel like I'm there now and I get it this time. I'm not going back. I want to live an optimal life. So it's time for me to start paying it forward. So I decided, it's time to attempt to coach and try and help friends and family and everybody get to the kind of same place where I am now. So I'm pretty excited about where 2021 is going to go, bigger and better things, and on my way to living a healthy life and never looking back.
That's great, Lisa. That's awesome. Do you think that doing the program while you have the stressors currently in your life has made things a little, in some ways, something less stressful for you?
I think it has, because with the stuff that's going on in my house and, trying to keep my dad from going out and shaking everybody's hands, this is one of those things that it's, I just get up and have my fueling and my coffee. And I think it's also helped making sure that he's eating healthier too, because, a lot of people, you watch them on Facebook and they're doing different things for their family than they're doing for themselves. I'm not really doing that. Whatever I'm making myself for dinner, I make him. The only difference is I'll add in like some kind of starch for him, whether it's potatoes or rice, but he's eating a lot more broccoli and asparagus, and I think having Corona and, having to stay around the house, in some ways it's made it easier because I don't have those temptations of one of my friends, we used to do Friday night margarita night every Friday night, and we're not doing that now. So, but I feel like now when we go out, that temptation, it's not going to bother me anymore. I don't have to have a margarita. I'd rather have my lemon vodka, with my club soda.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. Your story is awesome. You've done a great, great job. And coming back and being in a different place, it sounds like your mindset was really different when you restarted this and when you started going and started to seeing the progress, that I don't think you're going to go back.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think
this
so.
time, doing it twice is a lot of work. So I'm not doing it a third time. I'm gonna, focus on just being healthy, going back into those habits of saying, that first time you go out to dinner and say, well, I can have the chicken parm tonight. And then a week later, I can have it again and again. It's like those days are over. Now it's like, oh, I love the fish. And,
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. We don't want third time a charm this time around. So
exactly.
yeah, we're going to just go away from that. So that's so great. Congratulations. And I'm so glad that you shared tonight. And Chuck, good job. Good job. Yay. So, so I want to talk tonight, because this is our last healthy hangout of the year, about committing to you, more self-care in 2021. And the reason I chose the words commitment and committing to you versus making a resolution, which we hear now, we're going to start hearing more and more about people making resolutions, is because I truly feel that making a commitment to ourselves, and when you make that commitment to you, it's a much more personal focus. And it's really talking and saying, I am making a commitment to me. And it's not that this is a resolution. My New Year's resolutions are this. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to be better. Those are just kind of fly by night. But when you start to say, I'm making a commitment to me, then it puts it in a different time, a different frame of mind, a different mindset, a different intention. So I want to do a little bit of sharing of actually, I may not share and do a little bit of the PowerPoint. I might go into it in a little bit, but Dr. A in the elements, and I'm going to be kind of bouncing around maybe different elements here, but Dr. A at the beginning of the Life Book and Habits of Health, he talks about the rocks. And throughout the whole Life Book, you see the rocks. And the story of the rocks, in case you don't know, and I'll just do it really quickly, is that there was this time management guru at a college, and he was teaching this class, and he took a jar of rocks and he put these big rocks in the jar, and he asked the class if the jar was full, and the class said, yeah, it's full. And then he took some pebbles, he poured pebbles into the jar, and the pebbles went in between all the big rocks. And then he asked, is the jar full? And they said no, because they kind of figured out and caught on a little bit. Then he took sand, and he poured sand into the big jar, and that filtered in between the big rocks, the pebbles, and he filled it. And he said, is it really full? And they said no. Then he took water, and he poured water all the way into it to the tippity top, and he asked, is it the jar full? And they finally said with a resounding yes, the jar is full. And he said yes. He said, so what's the lesson in that? And so somebody raised his hand and said, the lesson is that the more you put on your plate, the more you can do. And he said, no, that is not the lesson. The lesson is that if you don't put your big rocks in first, then you will never get to them. So what really becomes important is really to start identifying what your big rocks are. What are the important things in your life? What are your priorities? So I am going to just share for us for a second here. What are your rocks? Each day is a jar that gets filled with big rocks, smaller rocks, and grains of sand. So the big rocks are the things that are important to you. And I want to talk about that in a sec. And then you identify those rocks and you put them into your day. And the key, and Stephen Covey says, I love this quote, is the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. So I shared this story with one of my clients who was a president of a bank. This is well before I did Optavia. This is my other company, Time Finder. And I shared the story, and he went on vacation. And as I said, he was president of a bank. When he came back, he had this big rock on his desk. And I said, Jim, what's with the big rock on your desk? And he said, well, I told my family your story. And when we went on vacation and he turned it around, he said, we painted a rock for myself. And he said, and he wrote on the rock, number 1, health and self. Number 2, family. And number 3, the bank. And I said, wow. So he prioritized his health and himself first. And I said, why did you do that? Because most of us who are sitting here probably will not necessarily put ourselves at the top of that list. We are taking care of so many other people and caring for so many others that sometimes we don't put ourselves at the top of the list. Though all of us here have done some way putting ourselves and our health really first and foremost because we're doing this program. But he said, if I don't have my health, then I am not going to be any good for my family. So my health has got to be at the top. And myself, I have to put myself at the top. So when you start to identify the priorities in your life, putting yourself at that top may be difficult to do that, but it becomes really something to think about, that you need to be that important person. You need to be and take control over you and put you at that top. Now, a lot of times I've heard people say, I can't do that. I would feel so guilty about if I did that. You know, I need to take care of this person, that person. I need to do all of that. And even Lisa, talking about taking care of her dad. But the thing is that if she doesn't take care of herself, she's going to eventually become really I'm not saying you will, Lisa, But if we don't take care of ourselves, it's easy to become resentful of people because we're not giving ourselves enough time to do things that we either want to do or that we need to do for ourselves. And guilt and feeling guilty if we don't do those things is actually wasted energy. If you're going to feel guilty about something, it's something that you've done that's immoral, illegal. But other than that, guilt is wasted energy. Being defensive about doing things for yourself is also not going to serve you, as well as being apologetic to anybody. Even if somebody's giving you that piece of cake that they made with their heart and their love, to be able to not apologize, I'm so sorry, I can't. It's not about that. It's being really strong about the fact that you are working towards your health and how important that is to you, because that may be one of your rocks. So identifying your rocks. The other thing I want to just share is that many times we have tangibles and intangibles that we want to do for ourselves, but we seem to not be able to get to them. So if you start to identify certain things that might serve you and help you, for example, I've had people say, well, I really want to meditate, or I want to journal, or I know I should be in my life book, but I just don't have the time, or I'm not taking the time. Or I really need to do something neat, non-exercise activities, thermogenesis. I need to be doing some motion, or I really need to do exercise activities, thermogenesis. I need to do some exercise, but I just can't seem to find the energy, the time, whatever it might be. Or I wish I had some quiet time just for myself. Or I need to work on my sleep. My sleep is just, I am just not really doing well with my sleep. Talking about Dr. A's habits, those are really real tangibles where you can start to take incremental steps of integrating those into your day. And one of the ways to start to integrate those into your day is, I'm going to go back to sharing. I hope it's the next slide. Let's see. Is to have blocks of time where you're going to be doing those things. Small blocks or big blocks, but having specifically a block of time that is specific to an activity that you want, and you start to see it, on your calendar, literally blocking out those things that you want to be doing on your calendar so that you can see them there, and they may pop up or as alarms on your phone, but they pop up. So you say, whoa, this says I'm going to go. This is not my calendar, by the way. This is just a sample, but oh, wow. This is from 11 to 11:30. I'm going to go on the treadmill. Or from 7 to 7:15, I'm going to meditate while I have my coffee. We talked about habit stacking a while back, creating a new habit along with something that is already a habit and integrating it into your day. So using your calendar to really embrace that calendar, hug your calendar, use your calendar, love your calendar, is really something that is going to help and, again, serve you to get those things done that you really want to. It really is a tool that will keep you focused on the things that you need to be focused on by really looking at how you're scheduling things. But then, so you start putting some steps in as to when you want to do whatever you identify as some of those self-care things that you want to do that you just maybe not getting to and that you want to be doing. But then the other thing is, you hear a lot of people wanting to be present, or they want to be more patient, or they want to be a better person, or they want to do certain things. Has anyone said that? One in the chat, if you've ever kind of thought that you want to be maybe more present, more patient, more better person, be more for others, whatever it might be. So those types of things are actually intangibles. Those are kind of intangibles. And so when you're looking at something that seems to be like an intangible, it's important to think, well, if I want to be more, thank you, Christine, for putting a 1 in the chat. But someone else, yay, thank you. But if you want to do something that seems like an intangible, then you have to be able to identify, well, what does that really gonna look like? If I'm impatient, when do I get impatient? And I start thinking about, oh, I get impatient when I do certain activity, or I'm with a certain person or whatever, and say, okay, take a step back, and what can I do differently in that situation to be more patient? So you start looking at really what it is that you are not doing that you want to be doing, and how do you start to then build it in small steps at a time. Does this make sense? Any nods? Okay. So it really means taking, like I said, taking those small incremental steps. So kind of in a little bit in a wrapping up and seeing if anyone has any comments, that calendar management is really critical to all of this. Looking at how you set boundaries for yourself, because if you set boundaries for yourself, then they're being set for others. A lot of times people say, oh, I have to set boundaries for everybody else, for all these people. I have to set boundaries. Once you set the boundaries for you, they're set. It's really about setting them for you. And sometimes I know a lot of people are working at home, and you know, even if you don't have people around, that you don't have family or you don't have others in your household, you still need to transition from whatever you're doing to work to kind of that life part. So before you stop whatever work you're doing, I think it's really helpful to take some deep breaths, hear Jennifer's voice as if she is like meditating, helping us through meditation, or deep breathing. And before you go to that next thing you want to do, just kind of center yourself before you then transition to something else, another type of activity. So what I would ask, if anybody has a piece of paper, if you have a piece of paper, or if you don't, just like a napkin or just something, I want you to just write down maybe 3 commitments to yourself as you start to think about the new year. And the 3 commitments start, and I'm not really talking about goals here as much as just a commitment to you, that I am, in the present tense, I am, and let's just say it's an exercise thing and it's not a goal. I am walking 3,000 steps a day, working towards 5,000. I am meditating for 10 minutes each day before I start and get dressed. I commit to make these commitments. They're not resolutions, they're commitments to you. I'm committing to me that I am going to, or that I am something. I'm committing, somebody wrote that. We just go to the next thing and keep going. So I am starting to get ready for bed at maybe it's 15 minutes before you currently are, if sleep is an issue for you. So I am in making that commitment. So it's now 8:29. I'm going to just put the habits of health next thing in there. But does anyone have any comments or any thoughts or anything they want to ask in the 1 minute or 2? Everyone is good. So are you making a commitment to you, Jen?
I was just going to ask you, Mitzi, so you're talking about commitments, and can you kind of speak to, so a goal is like kind of like a time, you're giving yourself a time, but a commitment, so what's the difference really between commitment and a goal?
So when you get down to a goal, and I use the formula, the SMART goal, something that's specific, measurable. I say there's action. I say realistic. Some people will say forget what the other R word they is, but I use realistic, and then there's a time frame to it. The intention here is that's that. It's an intention. It's making a commitment that I'm going to do something to help myself in that self-help. I think eventually it can be brought, you can turn it into a goal, but I know we're going to be talking about goals in January. Someone's going to do it. So I wanted to stay away from making it more like specifically a goal with that time frame. But I think if you just start off by saying something that and working in your head that, you know, even 1 to 2 or 3 things that I am committing myself to, you know, just like a little bit of motion, a little bit of exercise. It could be the healthier, you know, we're all hopefully doing healthier eating, or it could be that meditating. So that it's just not as kind of as specific with that time frame that it's completed by. These are actually things that are going to be more ongoing without a kind of a completion in a sense, because you reevaluate if you get to that number of steps, then you can reassess and go and make it more steps.
I see the commitments as things that help you achieve a goal.
Right. That's really cool. And I would love for anybody that's working with their coach, whether you are a coach and you still have a coach, you know, everybody has a coach, no matter if you're a client or a coach, but to go back and really in the beginning of January, have this conversation with your coach, because like you were saying, Chuck and Mitzi, it's not the goal yet. It's the formulation of what you want to create, basically, and what you're willing to commit to yourself first, you know? So, love that.
So with that, everybody, so I put the Habits of Health, the next call in there, the link. I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful holidays. Happy New Year to everyone. I look forward to seeing everyone in 2021. 2020 will be over, or as we say out here in Boston, over. So over, it'll be over. So everyone have a great night.
Thank you, Mitzi.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mitzi. That was
Mitzi. Good
lovely.
job, Mitzi.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.